Okay, everybody, welcome back. This is Todd Sylvester once again with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. And I have one of the most amazing people on today, one of my really, really good friends, Wally Davis. Welcome.
How you doing, Todd?
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Appreciate
you bet,
it.
dude. I'm excited to have our listeners hear your story. I need to give some props to our sponsor, Veracity Networks, and Drew Peterson, who made that possible. This sponsorship has been wonderful because it's really helped get spread the word out. And so I got to thank them and for their diligence in helping me out in there. So, but I'm excited today, man. We've got some good momentum going on with this, and this is going to be no different today. And so, Wally, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Happy to be here. Thanks. Yep.
So we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Like we went to high school together.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, we got some crazy stories.
We do.
Yes, we do, man.
Some fun times.
Oh, some crazy times. I do have to say this, and I hope it's okay, that one of my favorite memories of you, Wally, is when we were in your car. I think it was like a Cadillac or a Buick or something.
It was a Toronado.
Or
a big boat.
A boat.
Had a huge engine.
And Wally back then, man, he was buff. He was a big guy, and he took his shirt off, and he had this wig, this really long-haired wig, and we would just pull up on people.
You forgot I put a little mascara on my white whiskers to make it look like I was a tough guy.
That's right. And we would just drive in that car, and he would just pull up along someone and lock up the brakes and just screech it and jump out of the car and just scare the crap out of these kids. And
hey, you've been messing with my woman.
Yeah, but reason why I bring that up too, Wally's probably one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. You're fun-loving, you're goofy, you like to have a good time, and I think that's why a lot of people feel safe and comfortable around you. You run a very successful business called Peopletrail, which we're going to get into. He's married. He's got I guess 5 kids total, which we'll get into as well. But just a great family man, great person overall, and you got a great story as well. So thank you for being willing to come share. So let's start with where you grew up and a little bit about your family life. And
so I grew up in Salt Lake, Cottonwood Heights area. Pretty much from 3rd grade on, that's where I was. In fact, I think did you go to Butler Junior High and Butler Elementary?
I went to Cottonwood Heights Elementary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think we go back to junior high. But yeah, so grew up right at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon, a beautiful area. Always the things I remember about it is, there were some things. We went up to the river. It was always dammed up, or we'd dam it up and make a little swimming hole there.
Right.
And back then it was like, past 7200 south, really nothing was out there. So
right.
It was a lot of just open area to go out and play and hunt lizards and
lizard
hunting. Yeah.
Dude, kids don't do that anymore.
No, I know. I was out with Roman, my son,
Uh-huh.
last week, and we caught a horny toad, and he's so excited about it. So we brought it home, and
that's awesome.
Lizard hunting. So
yeah, we used to do that as little kids because there was places everywhere to go. Now my kids don't even know about lizard hunting.
Yeah, what? There are lizards around here?
There's lizards? Yeah, there used to be a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be a boy thing. I don't know.
I guess so, yeah.
So, but anyway, grew up around the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon. My family life was kind of crazy. I had, I'm from a family of 13. And I'm exactly in the middle. A lot of people say, the deprived middle child. That's true.
Right.
I have 6 older siblings and 6 younger siblings, and so the interesting thing about that is I kind of have two different families. One, I'm sort of on the tail end of the older siblings and kind of was involved in their lives.
Right.
And when they kind of moved out of the house and on, I was one of the older of the younger siblings. So had kind of an interesting experience in my family life with that. So that was kind of crazy.
Was that a tough thing, being in the middle, like where you at times did feel you were deprived? And yeah,
it's always a joke, the deprived kid, the the older kids or the first kids come along and get all the benefits and, but then the older kids are usually complaining that, yeah, you were really strict on us, but now you're lax on the younger kids. And I kind of had the worst of both worlds.
Right.
No,
right.
But it was good. I think it's kind of it's kind of what made me who I am as far as my personality and things like that too. So
yeah. Did you get along with your siblings back
I did.
then?
Yep. We all got along great. It was, a big old house with a bunch of crazy kids running around and very strict kind of authoritative father. And,
right.
My mom was obviously overwhelmed with all the kids and, it was kind of crazy, but it was a good environment. They loved us and they provided a lot of love for us. And it was a good environment to grow up in.
Well, it's interesting because when I first got to know you really well in high school, I guess junior high as well, I knew you a little bit, but more so in high school, you were just this outgoing, just seemed like you had all the confidence in the world. So it seems like that even though you were the middle child, you were still able to cultivate that confidence and that outgoing spirit that you had. Yeah,
for sure. I kind of, did a lot of searching for friends outside of the family, even though, we were encouraged to, in my family is kind of weird. They encouraged us to just be our family, but I didn't like that, just be friends with the family. We had enough siblings to be friends with.
Yeah, really.
But I really enjoyed people, and I've always been a people person. Had lots of friends around the neighborhood and go do crazy things with them. And I think going back to what you said when we met, I think, was it the freshman basketball team that we were on together?
Yeah.
I remember that. That was a lot of, in the locker room, crazy things, making fun of things and just all, the funny things you do as kids. But yeah, I remember a lot of that too. So, it's been a good life.
Yeah. Well, so growing up, let's get into some of the, maybe the things that we don't a lot of times talk about. I mean, even though you were this confident kid and this and that, was there ever issues where you struggled with certain beliefs you had about yourself or the world? Or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, and interestingly enough, I still struggle with a lot of those same things, which is kind of funny, but, self-image things. I think, you talked about how I was humorous and funny. I sort of found a way to get attention from people by making them laugh. Yeah. And so when I got uncomfortable in a situation or felt insecure or, had a poor body image or something, I would make light of it to make someone laugh at it. And it worked for me. You know what I mean? I was a little chubby kid and, I would run around and, call myself the chubby kid and everybody'd laugh at it. And eventually I grew out of that and then grew back into it right now. But yeah, that's what I kind of did. I found a way through humor to make people laugh and connect with people. But deep down, I'll really admit that it probably stems from insecurities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
talk about some of those insecurities. I mean, because I think most kids obviously go through insecurities, some worse than others, depending on certain things. But, you like you said, you grew up in a really good family that, supported you and this and that. But I think most kids, struggle through those insecurity pieces.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the insecurity really was, because we had a large family, we weren't, my dad, he was a attorney and worked hard, but we didn't have a lot of money because we had a lot of kids. So we didn't have the nicest clothes. And kind of back in the day when we were in school, you didn't have these big, companies that come out with where you can just get clothing anywhere and look fine. I mean, you had to be in the best, nicest, I don't know, maybe it's the same now, but the name brand clothes and things like that at school. And I was never one of those kids. I was kind of the kid with the flooded pants, floods, and just sort of the dorky kid. And those were real insecurities for me, honestly, because a lot of my friends, we grew up in a neighborhood that you know of, where there was a lot of money.
Yeah.
and people were, well off. Their parents did well. They had the nice cars. They were, drove their cars to work or to school. And, we drove around in that old Toronado, which was loaned to me very cautiously whenever I could get it. So
if only your parents knew what we were doing with that car.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think, really that was one of my big insecurities, was that I wasn't good enough because we didn't, have everything that everybody had, the nice cars, the good clothes. And I would play off of that a lot and try to make people laugh so that they would like me for, instead of those other things, instead of having nice clothes, or instead of being, the popular kid with, the cool car or whatever, make somebody laugh, and hey, that gets me some points.
Right.
So I became really proficient, honestly, at making people laugh. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but senior year, I was voted I've forgotten the mosts what they are, but it was the most humorous or most talented.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
They actually, I was actually voted most talented and most humorous, but they would only let me pick one. So I figured talent was, humor was a talent, so I picked talent. And that's what it is officially in the yearbook. But so, I mean, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying it to kind of prove a point that I really focused on, making people laugh, to point them away from real insecurities that I had as far as being, not the cool kid because of cool clothes or whatever.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, I remember you were also in the school choir.
Yep.
And you did a lot of even some goofy things in there that they allowed you to do.
Absolutely.
If I remember right. Yeah.
Yep. That's true. I had some cartoon character voices that I used, and we would do goofy things in Christmas programs. And I remember one time Sean Ogad, I don't know if you remember Sean, but he's a good friend of mine to this day. But we went out and sang Endless Love, and I was the girl in it and dressed up as a girl. And it just, it was at what is it called? What are they?
An assembly?
Assembly, yeah. So I'm having a brain freeze here. But an assembly, and, that sort of created people, they thought it was really funny. And so it kind of got me into that, known for doing crazy, goofy things.
Mm-hmm.
Back with the music thing, though, I will say that, I grew up in a very musical family, and that was part of something that really formed the character of who I am. My mom put me in piano lessons, and so I learned how to, read music. I learned how to do some of those things. So that was something that I really appreciate in my family. Many of my siblings, play instruments and are very musical. So that was something that I feel fortunate that was passed down to me,
right,
so that I could capitalize on some of those opportunities, when I got the opportunity to perform with music or singing or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and again, watching you perform, I remember just you seemed so confident in what you were doing, and I do you have that Endless Love on video? I'd love to
I
see that.
think it is somewhere, actually.
Dude,
I think it's on one of the.
Dude, we got to see that again. Wow, Endless Love. I can only imagine you were the woman.
Yep.
Yeah. But listeners, that gives you a little taste of. I mean, that's who Wally was. He was just goofy, funny, But I think a lot of times, just because you were from the outside look like everything was amazing, but we all have our insecurities and struggles, and so I appreciate you sharing some of those with me.
Absolutely.
And I think our listeners can relate to that as well. And so let's jump ahead just a little bit. So you graduate from high school from Brighton, and just kind of pick up from there. What were your dreams and hopes and goals at that time in your life?
Yeah. So I was I was raised in a religious family, and we're part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that was a big part of my upbringing, the values there and things like that. And as many people may know, missionaries go out on mission. So I spent 2 years on a mission serving the people of California. Went to California, Santa Rosa. Kept up a lot of my goofy things on the mission. There were times I remember when we were on the mission, a lot of times people would see us in California, these young guys in suits and short hair, and they would think we're weird. And, so I learned to do a lot of things like ride wheelies on my bike and go, past them. So they thought we were cool instead of dorky. I remember one time in an apartment complex, we were out tracting. And for any of those who don't know what that is, we're out knocking doors and trying to get people to listen to us. Well, we had 3 people with us that time, and we had one of them go upstairs, and then we'd knock on the door and say, hi, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We'd like to share with you a book from heaven. And then we'd put our hands out, and the guy upstairs would drop the book, and it would like land in our hands. And I can't tell you how many times people just started laughing, because there was the guy upstairs. All of a sudden, this book falls out of the sky, and we're sharing with him a copy of the Book of Mormon, and it just tried to do goofy things like that. And people would respond well. They laughed. All right, come on in. I don't think we ever ended up teaching anybody.
Kind of broke the ice.
Yeah, it really did, and it was.
Yeah.
So I kept up a lot of my goofy stuff, even out on the mission.
Well, you said earlier you look at it as a talent, and I agree. I mean, I look at anyone that can actually get a crowd laughing and do that. That's a talent,
Yeah.
It's something that I don't feel I have that talent, I might make the crowd laugh, but it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
It's like, whoops.
Yeah.
Screw that one up.
Yeah.
But well, so yeah, that's an interesting thing, and so that and I've known you even for years, even after that, and you've always kind of been even playing basketball with you, just pick up basketball, where you're just being goofy sometimes,
yeah, you gotta do that. I was a pretty intense guy too, and very competitive.
Oh yeah.
But the goofiness seemed to help me out a little bit, and you're right. I think everybody has talents that they are naturally kind of, they kind of go towards, and you take advantage of your strengths. And I think that's kind of what I seem to do. Even though it was really a cover up for some of the insecurities, it really helped me out in my life too. Even with my business. I mean, a lot of the contacts I have now, a lot of the friendships that I've formed over the years, even, not just with you, but with other people, doing business with them. And, like I said before, we grew up in a pretty affluent neighborhood. So a lot of these friends of mine went on, you know how it is. A lot of the people in our school, they're very successful people. Do really well. So those connections and those relationships have done well for me over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you moved on from, you come back from your mission and this and that, what did you end up doing? Did you go to college? Did you?
Yeah, I started right up at the University of Utah. I wasn't really good at school, to be honest with you. I just, like in high school, just kind of got by. You and I know we went, to the lower English class where we're spelling words out loud, and I didn't even care.
C,
exactly.
A, T.
Exactly. And I was the top of the class because everybody in there, were learning disabled, and I wasn't disabled. I just didn't put my mind to work and didn't work. Yeah. And I think I really, now that I look back at it, was pretty smart kid, but just didn't apply myself and didn't. And so, I just barely got by in high school, went to college and sat in these, big tests and got a D- on a test. And I'm like, what am I doing? I need to really study now, and I need to really apply myself. So that was a wake up call for me too. Eventually kind of quit school because I started making money. I'm pretty good at sales and relationships. So I was able to secure a job where I made some pretty good money, more than all my friends were making, because they were in school working, these jobs. Yeah. And so, but eventually what happened was I stayed where I was, and all my friends started graduating from medical school and from, they were attorneys and MBAs, and then they started making all this money, and I'm still where I was, and realized that there's really a lot to school. At this point, I was married, had a couple of kids, my wife was getting her PhD. She was very focused on education. So I decided to go back to school at night and really hunker down and get an education.
Yeah.
So
you ended up graduating from
I
college?
did actually got a undergraduate degree in business, and then a master's in a master's of arts in organizational management. So kind of a business degree.
Yeah. And I knew, back then you were a huge University of Utah fan, sports-wise as well.
Yep.
You had some cousins, if I remember, Josh Grant.
That's
and the
right.
Grants played up there.
That's right.
And I remember we talked a lot about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew that you were a huge Utah fan back then.
Absolutely.
Still today, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yep.
It's, and I think, Josh, he and I are the same age, so we're still very close and talk to each other. But, growing up, I was the type of family, BYU is a religious school, and my dad was the biggest BYU fan there was. He's the type of guy that would, in our family prayers, pray for BYU to win. I know that sounds a little sacrilegious, but I think he really meant it. And so when my best friend and cousin went to the University of Utah and I sort of switched teams, it was none of my family they're all BYU fans, but I kind of switched over to being a Utah fan, and ever since then I've kind of followed the Utes, and so that's kind of the story there.
Right. Yeah, and so you still obviously stay in touch with Josh, and
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
How's he doing?
He's doing great.
Good.
Yeah, he works up at the University of Utah now.
Oh, does he?
He's in the
Okay.
engineering department there.
Oh, right on.
And has kind of been connected. He played in the NBA actually at Golden State for a year, his first year, and then went over to Europe and played for 10 years over there and made a grundle of money. And yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Good
yeah,
for him.
we still go to lunch, still see each other every once in a while. We both have busy lives, but yeah, good guy.
Yeah, good guy. Yeah, we had some good battles with him against East in the tournament and stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah, he's a baller.
Yeah.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. You have a very successful business called Peopletrail.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to our listeners what the business is and kind of how you got started in this, because you started it from nothing to where it is today, and it's pretty remarkable how big it's gotten. So tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, so like I said before, I was always in sales, and I worked for a company in sales doing selling background, actually drug testing, where we would actually go out. Companies, before they hire someone, need to do a drug test on them, employment screening.
Yeah.
So I sold that to companies, and after a while, we got bought out by the largest company in the industry. And that's where I kind of learned the background screening side of it.
Okay.
So there's this whole industry for screening either potential employees or current employees to make sure that they're not doing drugs, make sure that they're not going to hurt any of your other workers, or, that they come in to work and, they're a violent offender or something, and they're going to steal money from you or whatever. So there's a lot of, especially since 9/11, it's been really big to do a background check on people that prospects that you're going to hire. So that industry really took off. And I was selling for the largest company in the industry for a long time. And I met a guy at the gym. I don't know if you know Barton Taylor. Do you know Barton Taylor?
I don't. He
He owns a software company that does, it handles background screening.
Okay.
And so I met him at the gym, and he's like, hey, I have this small company that I was just bought out, and I don't want to lose all the clients because they're using this software that I've developed. You're in this business. Do you want to come over here and do your own thing? He offered me 50% equity. He, put money into it. He was the investor, kind of. We had a small group of clients,
Right.
but not very many. And I came in and took over that, and haven't really looked back. So, I mean, that we were doing, I don't know, we had maybe 50 clients. We had some revenue, but since then we've grown to a multi-million-dollar company, and
Right.
we're doing hundreds and thousands of backgrounds and drug tests every day in every state, and helping out a lot of employers with compliance and things like that. So helping them to keep the bad guys out of the workplace, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Wow. So talk about that for a minute, because that's no easy task. What you've done. I mean, you just kind of said, well, we went from here to here.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy transition.
No, it really isn't. You know, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of getting, you know, getting down in the dirt and doing what you need to do. You know, I've always been, you know, the owner, the CEO of the company, but as a founder, you also are every other position in the company.
Right.
You're HR person, you know, and when there's only two of you, HR is not that big, but once you grow to a larger company, you know, you eventually hire people for all these hats that you're wearing. But yeah, it's a lot of work, starting a business from the ground up, because you got to do all the positions, and
right,
you know, you got to get out there and you got to go do the background check or do the drug test, you know, where at this point I hire people that can handle that stuff. But it really taught me a lot about work, going back to, again, you know, the education thing that I saw where all my friends started passing me up.
Right.
It was because I had kind of settled, you know, I'm doing well, I'm going to stay here.
Right.
Well, really, in the business world, it's the same thing. I could, you know, just settle for this small company that had a few clients. But is that what we really want? You know, is that what I really want out of life? And so I had to get down and do a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And it's funny, my kids, you know, will come to me a lot of times and say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sweep the floor. I don't want to put away the dishes. Well, how many times... You know, just how many times do you do something that you don't want to do? Yeah. You have to. You have to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, you do.
And it's...
well, what do they say? Like, successful people who are really successful do the things that no one wants to do.
Yeah.
Because we all have to do them.
Yeah.
But if you don't, and you're unwilling to do those things, because even if you're doing something you absolutely love, there's still parts of it that you know, deep down, I don't really want to do that. But you have to. You have to plow through that.
Exactly.
Which is really critical. So.
Yeah, and honestly, Todd, I think that's part of what has made me successful, because doing things that you don't want to do makes you learn the business in a lot more detailed way than if you just hire people to do everything for you. And I'm not saying, you know, that someone can't come in with money and investment and still run a company well. But for my particular situation, I believe that you know, the reason I'm successful or where I'm at today is because I did get down and do the things that I didn't want to do. And, you know, that's become less and less. You know, I don't mop the bathrooms anymore, but I'm not above it. You know, I'm happy to go in and do whatever needs to be done to help my business grow. So.
Well, I love that. And that's great advice for anyone who's out there thinking about, I'd love to start my own business or do my own thing. It comes down to learn every little piece of it, be the one that does every little part of it. Don't be above mopping the bathroom if you have to, you know. Yeah. I love that. That's a great way of looking at it. So your company now how big is it? You're saying it's in every state now?
Yep. We do, so we contract with court researchers all across the nation. There's probably 30 or 3,000 jurisdictions throughout the nation that handle court records. We just contract with people to go into the courts and pull records from them. We do stuff internationally. The footprint of our company is really what our clients are, you know, where they hire. So we have a lot of clients that hire, you know, internationally outside of the United States.
So you become automatically part of all
kind of a global thing, and laws and
that's cool.
Procedures are different in different countries, and hiring things are different in different countries. But, you know, we just help our clients wherever they're hiring and do what they need.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's awesome. Yep, that's Wally's phone.
Yeah, that's my phone.
It's working. We didn't think it was working, but it's working.
It works. I just can't answer it. The screen is dead. So,
well, I mean, we could spend another hour on your business, and not that I don't want to, but I want to get into, you know, you've been through some tough times recently with your family, with your wife, especially Allison, right?
Yeah.
And if you're open to that, if you could share kind of what you've gone through and kind of how you guys have persevered and how she's overall doing. And
absolutely. Yeah. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, my wife was diagnosed with a stage 3 uh, breast cancer. That's um, a pretty aggressive growing. She actually had a mammogram in January and it came back clear. And in March of the same year, this is last year, in March of the same year, felt a pretty aggressive lump in her breast.
Mm.
And by April, May, which is about this time last year, it had like dramatically increased in size. So we went in for a diagnostic and they're like, oh yeah, this is an aggressive cancer. We need to get it out right now. So, I mean, there wasn't any time of like, what do we do? It was like, we need to do chemotherapy to shrink it right away, which in and of itself, anyone who's been through that, it's a very harsh, it's a harsh thing, physically. And because of the aggressiveness of her cancer, I think they call it the Red Devil, the one that she was on. It's very aggressive. Basically, they just pump a bunch of poison into your body to kill the cancer, and it kills a bunch of other
Without
things
killing
too.
you.
Yeah, without killing you.
Yeah. Wow.
She's had her lifetime maximum of this type of drug, so she can't do any more, or it will kill her. So that was quite a experience to go through that last year, and then have the after the chemotherapy, they did the double mastectomy where they took off both of her breasts. And for a woman, that's a hard thing. That's part of their, I don't know, maybe not for her, but some people look at that as part of their womanhood, and she fed her babies with those, and it's something that is very personal, and now she doesn't have them, and so that's a discussion for her. But I guess my perspective on it is it was really a difficult thing to go through, because we got a lot of attention, a lot of people that love us and gave us meals and brought neighbors and things like that, but she got a lot of attention. And not to say that she didn't need it, but it was really hard for me at times to sit back and have the concerns that I have about her and her well-being. And she's the mother of my children. All the what ifs. Is she not here? What are these things? How are we going to do this? And how am I going to handle this financially? I took a tremendous amount of time off work, which I felt like took away from my business. But now that I look back on it, I feel like I'm talking a lot here, but now that I look back on it, it actually was a blessing in disguise that I had my own business, because I could take off time. We have a 5-year-old kid, 4-year-old at the time, needed care while she was going to her appointments, being poked and prodded and scanned and all those things that happens when you have cancer. And it was just a very trying time. And I learned that I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. That was the hardest job I've ever had, honestly.
Right.
That's got to be the hardest thing that a person does, is take care of kids at home. And gained a new respect for my wife, and so and anyone in general. Moms in general.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
I see what my own wife did, and how much time and effort they put into the kids, and it's remarkable. And it really is, probably the toughest job out there, because it's just 24/7.
Yeah,
just doesn't stop.
And it's not really rewarding. I mean, at least immediately, you have your kids that love you, and,
right?
And then their progression obviously is a reward of how they go on to accomplish things, but it's definitely not immediate reward. I mean, changing a poopy diaper or whatever, that's not it's not fun.
Right. Yeah. So your wife, Allison's, how's she doing now?
She's doing great. So she's been through all the radiation. Now she is just on a hormone suppressing drug, which she gets a shot every month. It's called Zoladex, and gets that pumped into her. Makes her a little bit sick, but she's doing great. Her attitude is amazing. She's been a rock throughout this whole cancer thing for the past year. I don't know if officially she's been declared cancer free yet, but they've got everything out as far as all of the cancer cells.
Right.
they've kind of burned it with the radiation and whatever they do. They spot treat it. And
Yeah.
So she's been through all that, and hopefully, she's actually going right now to do a scan on her head, just to make sure. But
Sure.
yeah, so there'll be some preventative things. But as far as I know, she's pretty much through the hardest
That's
part
good
of
to
it.
hear.
And we're moving on.
Yeah. Wow. So how have you grown as a man going through all this? Like, just, obviously you said, yeah, you had to do all these sacrifices and stuff, but you look back on it like, I would do it again.
Absolutely.
What's the overall take, I guess, is what I should say through this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the overall take is that, and I've gained a lot of respect for women, not to like categorize women in a box, but I think, and you may relate to this, but women are just better at multitasking. At least they're better than me. And maybe there's some men that multitask too, but
Yeah.
I need to be focused on one thing. And when I have all these other things going that are very important, that need to get done at the same time, it's very difficult for me. And I was completely 100% overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And, again, not to generalize, but in my situation with my wife, I know she's good at multitasking and I'm not. And so to be able to be put in a situation where I was forced to do so many things, worry about a big business, worry about clients, worry about kids getting to school, to taekwondo appointments, worrying about getting my wife to her chemo appointments, worry about getting, all those things, coordinating those things was way more difficult for me than it would have been for her, I think. So I really learned to just kind of set back and just what is important, what needs to be done, what's the most important thing to me, my family, my kids, my wife. So I let a lot of things go, honestly. I let a lot of things go at work. And really, those things don't matter. I mean, maybe I didn't, maybe I would have been a larger company now had I really just focused on that one big client or something. But, I let a lot of things go and took care of the things that are really important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think God has really blessed me for doing that, because I haven't really had a significant hiccup in my business, in my family, with my kids, all the things that I'm taking care of. There hasn't been a significant hiccup or problem, and we've got through the cancer. She's okay, and everything has turned out, on the other side of it has turned out to be really, really positive.
Right. Wow, that's very well said. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you said it that way. And I've said this before on this belief cast, that life happens for us.
Yeah.
I really do. And yeah, as hard as that was that you were going through, Wally, like you even say now, you can look through it and like you're glad you went through it because you were able to let go of some things that weren't as important. This is what's important.
Yeah.
And it allowed you to, like you said, that be able to focus on that one thing, which is my family right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good way of saying it and looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's a lot more to your story, but if you could give any advice or any challenge to our listeners who might be listening right now, who may be going through cancer or have someone going through that, or they're trying to start a business, whatever. Is there any advice that you could give someone out there that might be going through that stuff?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get in our own heads and think we have problems, or there's this issue that I'm dealing with, and we kind of go around selfishly, if I might put it that way, thinking about our problems and the things that we need to overcome. And realistically, every human being on this earth is going through their own trial, their own set of circumstances that are hard for them.
Right.
And I think I became aware of that a lot while I was in my kind of selfish attitude. I'd bump into people and they had been through these struggles and they had been through all these things that they'd gone through. And it was an epiphany to me to realize that everybody is going through their their crap. Everybody has their stuff that they're living in, and it makes me a little bit more compassionate when I run into people too, and a little less judgmental, I think, knowing that everybody's got their stuff to deal with, and mine may be hard, but so is theirs to them. The other thing really quickly is they may not be going exactly through what I'm going through, and they may be able to handle what I'm going through better than I can. But what they're going through or what I'm going through is hard for me. And I think that's been evidence to me throughout, looking back throughout this and seeing the challenges that I've faced. Maybe someone could have handled it really a lot better than I did, but I went through it for a reason.
Well, yeah, and I love that because it's all relative. Because, I always laugh when it's like, well, someone has it a lot worse than you.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't really help in the moment because this is
Not at
my
all.
challenge right now.
Exactly.
This is my mountain. Yeah, I can sit and judge you while I would handle it so much better than Wally would have. But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with that's your challenge. That's your Mount Everest you're trying to climb. I'm over here climbing this one. And you might look at mine and go, well, Todd, all you got to do is this, and this. Well, this is my challenge for a reason because it's my challenge.
Yeah.
So I always laugh when someone says, well, someone has it a lot worse than you.
Yes.
And yeah, can we point out people that have it worse? For sure. But it doesn't help in the moment because I'm going through this and it's my challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said it that way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good advice. So if people want to get to know more about you, like learn more about what you do for a business, learn more about Peopletrail even, or if they want to reach out to you who they want to get some advice about how did you deal with this cancer? I got a spouse going through it as well. What would be the best way for them to reach out to you and get to know you better?
Absolutely. I'm on social media. My business is on social media, Peopletrail, peopletrail.com. There's a number there. My email address, I don't know if you want to just email me at WallyD, WALLYD at peopletrail.com. Feel free to get a hold of me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody,
Yeah.
Email probably is first, social media maybe second, and then we could always set up something if they wanted to learn more. Or hear about
I love that. Because I know there's a lot of our listeners who are going through a challenge in their life, and it might be good for them to reach out to someone who's been through something or at the tail end of a certain challenge and be able to get some advice on that. And so I appreciate you being willing to share that. And
for sure.
And I do know this about Wally, that he is the guy that would help. I mean, he really is. He's one of the most caring guys I've known. He's helped me a lot in some of my previous business adventures. And so I can't tell you and, thank you
Todd.
enough for that, Wally. But you really are a giving person.
Well,
And you were seriously one of the funniest dudes. I mean,
class clown. What,
I think
what a thing to be known for. Huh?
Yeah, but it was good because you lightened up the mood for a lot of people. I heard once a comedian say, I think it was actually Jim Carrey, that says his purpose in being humorous and doing stand-up comedy was to relieve people from concern. And I thought, wow, that's so true. Yeah. And it's kind of like when you were the funny guy. For that moment, people were laughing. You're relieving these people from any concern they might be going through in the moment. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even myself in some ways.
And yourself.
Yeah.
Relieving yourself from some things you're struggling with. But, I mean, we have, I've got more stories in my head that I've been thinking about, when you were boxing Devin.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And, he about bit his tongue off.
Yeah.
Or was it your tongue?
Yeah, it was my tongue.
Yeah, he backhanded you.
Dean Thompson took me to the...
Yeah, I was there with you.
Took me to the thing and sewed up my tongue. And that was crazy.
Yeah, and... But
did you ever go to the totem pole place? Where, where we went down there at night.
On Walker Lane?
Yeah, Walker Lane. Yeah. That was all this scary
Look at this totem pole.
I know.
It means nothing, but we were like, oh, it's got to be something scary. But
that's funny.
But you're just an overall good guy. And, to my listeners, if you have any questions whatsoever, and if your business is looking for a very reliable company that can do background checks and drug testing for your organization, or you're looking for someone else that can be more reliable, check out Peopletrail and Wally, because they do a fantastic job from going from 50 clients to now you're global.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rare thing, dude.
It's been a fun ride.
So, Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Wally,
Absolutely,
for sharing
Todd.
your story with us.
Yeah,
And
appreciate you and your friendship. You've
thank
always
you.
been a good friend.
Thank you, man. Well, the feeling's mutual, and I got to thank the listeners. Thank you so much for your support. I'll be real with you guys. I'm new at doing Belief Cast podcasting. I've screwed up several times. You've probably heard of a previous Belief Cast that I did that the sound was horrible. It was all my fault. But thank you for sticking in there with me. I've got some great guests, Wally. I got more coming. It's just going to be better. I love just hearing great stories, and I want to thank you for your support. And again, thanks to Veracity Networks, and Wally, thanks once again, man. You're a great man.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks everybody. Till next time.